when the blood wolf rises from the ocean, we will all be dead. This is the story. Thousands of years ago, in a taiga forest, there was a large pack of wolves. And this pack of wolves was just going along with their normal day-to-day activities, as the elders picked berries and hunted sheep, whilst the young played around with each other. It was a simple life, but it was a nice life, and everyone was happy. Until on one sunrise, when everything changed for the worse. As on that morning, all the elders of the pack were just asleep under a boulder of musty cobblestone, whilst the younglings of the pack were playing outside in the nearby river, when suddenly the worst earthquake ever recorded began to shake the world. Now, the effects of this earthquake was so extreme that caves began to collapse, mansions would split in two, and trees all over the world began toppling over. It was devastating, and the death toll was far into the millions within the first few seconds of the earthquake. But what about that boulder where the elderly wolves were sleeping? Well, the shaking caused it to roll forward, which crushed them all to death. Meanwhile, the younger wolves were just trying to either dodge the falling trees to get back to their parents, or were trying to run away to safety. And while all of those who dared to get any closer to that boulder where their parents were, well, they were also sadly crushed, as a giant boulder from a nearby hill rolled down and destroyed everything below, which killed any of the younglings nearby. And so only those that were actually attempting to get away from the falling trees had the chance of surviving. But even their chances were slim, as by the time the earthquake was over, only one young wolf survived. Now, at first, that young wolf was scared, as he was now all alone and he had just experienced an earthquake, with most of his friends and family probably being killed. But very quickly, he knew that he could not be scared and alone. He needed to just toughen up and find a wolf to team up with, as there must have been at least one other wolf that survived that, right? And so, in the bravest way he thought he knew how to, he let out his loudest and most aggressive howl. No response. That could mean everyone was dead, which likely was the case, but this young wolf was convinced that that was not the case, and that there was another wolf out there who just really needed some help. And so he continued to howl up at the sky, hoping for a response from another wolf. But he did that all day, and still nothing. And so he was truly alone. No one else had survived. And he had done this for so long that it was now becoming night. And so he wandered his way over to the soft sandy beach and went to sleep for the night, traumatized by the events that had just occurred. However, during that night, he was suddenly awoken by a strange blue light. It was something that he had never seen before, and it was very bright, and it was right next to him. That light was from a drowned. Now, at first, this young wolf was terrified, as he thought that this drowned was some sort of water ghost demon, and so he began trying to run away from it, thinking it was going to kill him. But then, that drowned spoke, very softly, to the wolf.
Hold up, there's no need to run, little wolfling. There's nothing to be scared of anymore. The earthquake is over. Plus, I'm here to help you.
This young wolf was skeptical, as he didn't know why an underwater ghost demon would try and help him. But at the same time, he didn't try to run any further, as he wanted to hear what this strange creature had to say.
Hey, little wolfling, I think you need some help, don't you? Your pack. They died, didn't they? I heard your cries earlier. So, how about this? I can take you to my leader and he can help heal and regenerate you. And if you don't like it down there, I can always take you right back to where you are now. How does that sound? There's nothing to lose from doing this. We only want to help.
This young wolf was still very skeptical, but at this point, he had nothing to lose, and his injuries from the earthquake were hurting him quite a bit. And so, he agreed to this creature's help. And so it was then that the drowned touched the wolf's head, which teleported him to a giant underwater city. Instantly, the young wolf began trying to swim upwards, thinking that he was going to drown at the bottom of the ocean, and that this was all a trap. But then he realized something. He wasn't drowning. That was strange. In fact, more than that, the air that he was breathing in was some of the freshest air he had ever breathed. It was a very strange sensation, but quickly he found the reason for that, as there was a strange glowing blue orb right in front of him. And so he went to swim towards it to look at it in greater detail, when the drowned appeared behind him and spoke again.
Follow me, Wolfling, and I shall take you to the leader.
And so, not wanting to be rude to that drowned that took him to this magical underwater city, he stopped staring at that blue orb and just followed him. And so the drowned led this young wolf into a giant white palace, where the king sat majestically on his throne and said,
"Oh, you look very injured, young one. Come here, I can help you."
The young wolf stood still for a second, not entirely sure if he could trust this underwater king. But again, what's the worst that could happen? And so he walked over to the throne where the king was sitting and jumped on his lap. And then the king began to pat his head, and then suddenly everything felt okay. In fact, it was more than just okay. He suddenly felt brilliant. All of his wounds were just gone, and he suddenly felt a bond between himself and the king. And well, so did the king. And so it was on that day that a lifelong friendship was born. As from that day onwards, the young wolf would sit by the king's side at every moment, being extremely loyal to him. And in return, the king treated the wolf to the greatest of luxuries. And he also cared deeply for this wolf. And so fast forward a few years, and the two were still the best of friends. The only difference now being that the young wolf wasn't so young anymore. In fact, he was a fully grown wolf and was now almost twice the size. And the loyalty between the two, well, it couldn't have been any stronger. And so, life was great for the wolf, as by this point, he had almost entirely forgotten his life in the surface, as he, with the king, lived a very happy life. But then, just as fate would have it, that would all change on one thundery night. As it was on that night, while the king and the wolf were on their daily midnight stroll across the palace, that a group of rebellious axolotls tried to steal the glowing blue orb at the center of the city. And well, they were successful in their heist. Now, this was bad, very bad, as with the orb gone, the wolf began to drown, as he relied on that orb being powered for him to breathe. The king saw this, and instantly his warrior instincts were activated, as no one was going to allow his best friend to drown. And so the king swam at full speed, faster than even his guards could, at these traitors, just trying to get that orb back to activate it and stop his friend from drowning. But just as he was about to reach them, the axolotls swam around the corner of his castle, where thousands of guardians awaited. And instantly, they all began firing their dangerous beams. But not at the king. No, they were firing at the drowning wolf. That was bad news for him, as he was already taking quite a bit of damage from the drowning, and now he had thousands of lasers shooting at him. And so because of that, he began bleeding all over, and bleeding he was quickly, as in just a matter of seconds, his entire body was covered in blood, and he was in immense pain. And then, because of that, he blacked out, and he was likely dead.
I said do it. I can't let him suffer like this. Plus, he made it here, and so he must be the wolf from the prophecies. And so when he gains the power of the king, me, he will be able to rule the ocean, and he will be the greatest ruler, and he will save the world. So, just do it.
The wolf was brought back to life, but he was different now, as he was now a solidified spirit, meaning he had died in that attack, but somehow he'd been given eternal life, and he was now in his last living form. And so that's why he was still red and bloody, as that's how he was when he died. And so that's how that wolf became the Blood Wolf. And so he would now be immortal. And not only that, he would also have many other powers as well. But how did this all happen? How was he revived? Well, it was because the king, his loyal best friend, had sacrificed his life force and powers to bring him back. And the Blood Wolf knew this, which is why when he was awoken, he was just so upset. And so because of that, he just began wailing out in grief over the loss of his best friend. However, something very unexpected happened because of this, as after he calmed down and stopped howling up at the sky, he saw that a pack of smaller clones of himself had just appeared right in front of him, one for each howl he had at the sky, and they all said in unison,
"Hello, Master. We all swear ultimate loyalty to you and only you, and we will do everything that you command."
The Blood Wolf was quite shocked to see all these wolves right in front of him, but seeing them and knowing that they'll be loyal to him gave him an idea. Maybe he could use these wolves to get revenge on those guardians which caused the death of his best friend. And so he ordered his pack, along with many of the other drowned surrounding him, to begin searching for the guardians. And so together they all left the pristine underwater castle and began their search. However, there was a slight problem with that, as none of them had any idea where the guardians would be. And so after a few days of scouring the ocean with no luck of finding any guardians, the Blood Wolf came to the conclusion that these strange guardians must live on the surface. And so he, along with his entourage, ascended up to the surface, ready to kill those guardians and get his revenge. However, little would they know that when they rose to the surface, one of the Blood Wolf's very rare powers would be activated. That, if they didn't realize, would be devastating to the world. As when the Blood Wolf rose above the ocean rose with him. Now at first, he didn't notice, nor did anyone else. But then, when they began trying to walk on the beach, they quickly realized, as the ocean depth had risen by over 10 meters, and more than that, the part of the ocean that had risen was now red. Blood red. And more than just that, the Blood Wolf controlled this red part of the ocean. But before the Blood Wolf could comprehend that fact, or get its revenge on the Guardians, he was suddenly dragged down away and to the bottom of the ocean floor, where he was taken to a strange white rock and was teleported back to the palace. That was strange. The Blood Wolf didn't quite understand what happened there and tried lunging forward to get back up to the surface and get its revenge on the Guardians. But before he could do that, the king spoke to him.
Hello, Wolfling. I'm not entirely dead, so there's no need to go getting revenge on those Guardians, as I'm still here, in spirit, within your heart. So, I want you to do something instead, as this is your duty now, okay? Because you are the wolf from the prophecies. As now I want you to spend the next 100,000 years mastering the command of your clone pack and mastering the control of the ocean. And don't stop doing this until you've perfected these skills, and then after that you should be able to discover the dark magic. And so after that you should have the powers of almost a god. And so with that, you'll be able to do almost anything that you could possibly imagine. And do not let anyone stop you from doing this, or else you'll have to start this entire 100,000 year journey all over again. So, good luck, friend. You have been prophesized to do many great things.
The Blood Wolf was shocked to hear his friend again, but at the same time, he was also just happy knowing that the king was still alive, even if it was just in spirit and within himself. And so, understanding what the king said, he began to complete these prophecies and become that godly being as he started his practice. And so over the next few decades, the Blood Wolf would harness the power of the ocean through controlling the moon's tidal forces, and he would command his pack of wolves with no disobedience. And just as the king predicted, he was also coming to discover dark magic, which altogether made him an oceanic god. But after doing that for decades with constant practice without any breaks, he just felt exhausted and needed some sleep. And so he jumped on the throne where his master once sat and went to sleep. Now let's just hope that no one awakes him from that long slumber, because if they do, well, let's just say that practice will come in handy and he will curse them, and his pack of royal wolves will injure them greatly. But that would never happen, as no one would find their way into this secret underwater palace, right? Well, watch this video to find out.